Minister, I want to know if the plans announced in Budget 2018 to introduce a low-cost cash flow loan scheme for farmers has now been totally abandoned, in view of the fact that there seems to be no movement on the hardship fund to help bridge the cash flow difficulties for farmers, and maybe you might give us some clarification today.
Priorities is to improve access to finance for the agri-food sector. Foodwise 2025 identifies competitiveness as a key theme and includes a recommendation that stakeholders work to improve access to finance for agriculture, forestry and seafood producers and agri-food companies. The Future Growth Loan Scheme is being developed by my department and the Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation in partnership with the Department of Finance, the Strategic Banking Corporation of Ireland and the European Investment Fund. It will be delivered through participating finance providers and make up to €300 million of long-term investment loans available to eligible Irish businesses, including the primary agriculture, agri-food and seafood sectors. The loans will be competitively priced and will be for terms of 8 to 10 years. This is a long-awaited source of finance for young and new entrant farmers, especially the cohort who do not have high levels of security. It will also serve smaller-scale farmers who often do not have the leverage to negotiate for more favourable terms with their banking institutions. Food companies have identified long-term investment finance of up to 10 years as critical need, which is currently unavailable in Ireland. The delivery of this product and its effects will be felt all along the food production chain. The fund is leveraged by exchequer funding of €62 million, of which 40%, or some €25 million, will be provided by my department. My department's contribution was announced as part of Budget 2018 and will be paid to the scheme by the end of this year. Arrangements are currently being finalised to have the scheme in place and ready to launch in early 2019. The scheme will run for 3 years from its launch date, and further announcements in this regard will be made shortly. Regarding cash flows issues generally, I also liaise with the main banks on issues relating to the agri-food sector, and I welcome that they have following through on their commitment to support the sector through a challenging period. The delivery of last year's agriculture cash flow loan scheme has acted as a catalyst to encourage financial institutions to improve and develop new loan products for the sector. A recently announced initiative by one of the main banks mirrors that scheme in offering a discounted interest rate with extended and flexible repayment terms. The MilkFlex loan product, developed by the Irish Strategic Investment Fund with dairy, co-op and private banking participation, is another good example of innovation in this regard. In addition, many farmers rely heavily on co-op and merchant credit, and I have welcomed initiatives by some of the co-ops in relation to credit facilities for their suppliers.
Deputy Murphy, 1 minute.
I suppose I have to welcome what you are saying to us in terms of this now going to come on board in 2019. But remember, this was announced in Budget 2018, Minister. I think, if I am not mistaken, you made another announcement at the IFA AGM in January. It was indicated it would be set up in autumn. And I push this point on the basis it's the most challenging time for farmers that I have ever seen. You have Brexit, the uncertainty of that. You have the CAP reforms, the uncertainty of that. But most of all, you have climate change. And, you know, the weather patterns, as you have seen yourself, have changed dramatically. And this is costing farmers dearly. Now, as you know, in relation to any business, in relation to farming in particular, you must have financial planning. And this is why I urge you to ensure that you get this in place in a matter of weeks. Farmers badly need it, they desperately need it, and there should be no further delay. And imagine something that would be announced in the budget, some other payments, if they didn't occur when they were supposed to occur. There would be absolute uproar in this country. So I appeal to you to do everything to bring this in as quickly as possible.
1 minute.
Thank you, Deputy, and I confess to have been rather frustrated myself at the difficulty in progressing this matter. As you are aware, the European Investment Fund Agreement Bill 2018 has concluded its passage through the Seanad, and in fact is, as if I am correct, coming into this House today. That is the legislative framework under which this new loan agreement, loan fund, will be delivered. It requires a legislative basis because of the involvement of the European Investment Fund, as I understand it. So it has been more cumbersome and difficult than we anticipated, taken longer than I would have liked, but I am satisfied that it addresses a gap in the market for capital investment, unsecured lending over 8 to 10 years at an interest rate that is not currently available. So I do acknowledge that it's later than we would have liked, but it will be in the marketplace in early 2019.
Final question.
I welcome that again, but you have to look at what has happened already in 2018. You know, you had a terrible fodder crisis last spring. Absolutely appalling weather. Actually, we had this spring. It seemed that winter went into summer. Then we had the crisis of, farmers worried about getting fodder, not able to get fodder initially. You had the crisis down in your own part of the country. The dairy sector was really affected. And of course, you have the beef price sector now as well. So on all fronts, farmers are under attack and financially under attack. So while I welcome what you have clarified here this morning, I again would urge you to put this in place as quickly as possible, because farmers won't be able to continue unless they are able to put that financial planning in place, and that financial planning it needs to be assisted by government along the road, because, as I said earlier, but all of those threats that are coming down the road, again the uncertainty of Brexit, as I said, there's going to be changes from CAP, there's no doubt about that, and if we have that financial crisis on top of that, it makes it next to impossible for farmers to continue to work at their trade.
Final response.
I accept the point the Deputy makes, and if we were in any doubt about it, the recently published this week Teagasc preliminary farm income survey for 2018 confirms that. So I do acknowledge that it's been a very difficult year. I would, however, say that in the context of all the climate-related challenges, the stakeholder group that we established worked exceptionally well, and to all the participants, statutory and non-statutory, voluntary in particular, in farm organisations, we've seen the gap closed substantially to a situation where I think there is now an acceptance that we have sufficient fodder in the country. There may be individuals who have difficulties, and we need to remain vigilant in that space. But I do accept the trust of the Deputy's overall observations, and would hope that this financial product, which is for capital investment, not working capital, will be of some benefit to the sector in 2019.
Deputy Marina Sullivan, 30